So before we get into this video, if you guys want to check out my link tree down below, you can check out my feature film Pesadilla, which is on Amazon right now. You can also check out my link tree, my short films. You can log them on Letterboxd. It would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for the support on the channel. This is actually a really cool video that I'm making because I had a chance to see Brady Corbett's The Brutalist early, which was something I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do. I thought maybe I would get to go to one of the 70mm screenings later this month, but they're all in New York and LA so far, for all I know. So I don't know, maybe if I get one that's sort of near me, I might see this film again because I really want to. This was just wow. And apparently I spoke to somebody at the theater today that I think her son was a consultant for the architecture in The Brutalist. And I got to take a picture with one of my friends for her, and that was also really cool too, that she knew the director. But this is something that you guys might not know about me, and I'm just going to go ahead and give you guys just sort of a little snippet. You know, I'm not going to go into it completely, but I actually went to school for architecture and design, and I dropped out. But yeah, so this was something that I had an interest in a little bit ago, and so I kind of went from architecture to filmmaking. There is no kinda, I mean, I did. So I was kind of excited for this film on a personal level, and I'm very pleased to say that the architecture is not necessarily front and center. I would more so say the architecture is there, not even necessarily in spirit, because we get to see our lead character Laszlo Toth pursue it, but it is there, I think, as almost a strong metaphor and symbolism, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But The Brutalist stars Adrian Brody, Felicity Jones, Guy Pearce, Joe Alwyn, Emma Laird, Rafferty Cassidy, I hope I'm saying that right, Stacey Martin. Stacey Martin's also in a lot of Brady Corbett's films, or the other two. Corbett? Is it Corbett or Corbett? I'm just going to keep saying Corbett. But she's in the other two Brady Corbett films, and Brady Corbett is also an actor. He was in Funny Games and Mysterious Skin. I don't know if he is still an actor currently, but he also co-directed the script, or co-wrote the script, my bad, co-directed. He directed it. Co-wrote the script with his partner Mona Fastfold, I believe. This is what the film is about. I'm going to read you the official synopsis. Escaping post-war Europe, visionary architect Laszlo Toth arrives in America to rebuild his life, his career, and his marriage on his own. In a strange new country, Laszlo settles in Pennsylvania, where the wealthy and prominent industrialist Harrison Lee Van Buren recognizes his talent. There are specific films that I get extremely excited about throughout the year. I always have that one film that I'm super pumped for, that I cannot wait to watch. In 2023, it was The Zone of Interest. This year, it was The Brutalist. Don't know what 2025 is going to be. I'm still excited about it. I mean, it's always nice to have excitement for a film. I was also really excited for Longlegs this year, too. But no, The Brutalist, it just really intrigued me because it's 3.5 hours long with a built-in intermission. The reviews and the talk out of Venice were kind of nuts. I mean, calling it the next Godfather and the next There Will Be Blood. Yeah, it's a very personal film, and you can sort of tell. Again, this is stuff that I'm going to get into, but for the most part, I did enjoy The Brutalist. Like, there is no I did. Like, I loved it. I thought it was great, and it probably is my favorite film of the year so far. I know there's still films that I need to watch that are coming out, like Flow and Queer and The Room Next Door and Cloud. So far, this is my favorite film, and it's going to be a hard film to beat. Because what this film did was, and I mean this in a positive way, is it reminded me what other films lacked in, if that makes sense. Because this film was made for $10 million. It is set between multiple decades. It's, you know, it's an epic story. It's a subtle epic story, because one thing that I noticed about this film, which I could definitely tell, I think a filmmaker would be able to tell the budgetary constraints, but to the average audience member, they're not really going to care. But the film is shot very tight. Everything is very tight. There's a lot of shallow depth of field, a lot of handheld, a lot of still camera. That's usually where it goes, which that's kind of what I prefer anyway. I mean, that's like what I work with most of the time. I love a good handheld camera if it's done right. And then, of course, you know, you can't go wrong with still locked camera. There's a lot of one takes in this film, just a lot of one shots. So it's a very economically made film, and you can definitely tell that. It's not as, like, when you compare it to The Godfather or There Will Be Blood, this film is not necessarily, I guess you could say, as wide as those films, if that kind of makes sense. Just to sort of give you guys an example, it's a very up close and personal film, and I think that might have to do with the budget, because, you know, again, they didn't have a lot. And it's very impressive too, and I think the up close and personal stuff kind of works. And you do get snippets of bigger sets of, you know, people in the time period walking around and stuff, but for the most part, it's usually just a couple of characters in a central location talking. That's basically all it is. And for some people that might throw them off, but let me tell you, do not let that scare you whatsoever. I know the 3.5-hour runtime is daunting. A post-World War II film, 3.5 hours long, about an architect. It might sound scary to some people, but let me tell you, it is very intriguing. It's very fascinating. I have been a fan of Brady Corbett's other films. Childhood of a Leader was fantastic, and Vox Lux was amazing. I don't know how I would rank his films so far, but he does sort of... It seems like he is more of a critical darling than he is an audience guy. Like, because if you look at his audience scores for his last film, not saying scores matter, they definitely don't. But if you do look, like Vox Lux has like a 30-something, it's got a 60-something critic score, so it's kind of on the lower end. But then you have Childhood of a Leader that has like a 90-something critic score and a 50-something audience score. Again, those do not matter. I think Brady Corbett is a fantastic filmmaker. He's one of my favorite working today now. But it just sort of, those numbers kind of tell you how different critics and audiences feel about the guy. So I'm wondering if the audiences are going to go for this film as much as critics have, because again, it's going to be very interesting. But for me, I love the film. I am going to go ahead and say this. I'm going to just lock it in right now, and I'm going to stick to it until the Academy Awards is done. Adrien Brody, lock for Best Actor. Lock for Best Actor. Lowell Crawley, I'm not sure about cinematography. I really hope that Lowell Crawley wins an Oscar for this, because it would be well deserved. The VistaVision format, I mean, it looked phenomenal. It was intense at times. It was. And I just think that the composition, the use of natural light, it was just so pleasing to look at. There's a specific part in this marble quarry that was just phenomenal. Seriously, it was insane. Let me see who done the soundtrack for this, actually, because I don't want to mispronounce it. Yeah, I'm going to say that this film is a lock for Best Score too, and if it's not, I would be very surprised. It's so good. The music for this film is just empowering. I mean, it is intense. I mean, without the music, this film would have been a completely different film. The music for this film makes it that big, epic, heavy, film. And the movie is split up into 3 parts, essentially 4 parts, I guess you could technically say. There's an overture, there's a part 1, there's a part 2, and then there's an epilogue. And the epilogue was, I personally love the epilogue. I thought the epilogue was great. I love this shift with the soundtrack. I just had so much fun with this film. It was such a terrific time. I would recommend anybody go see this. If you can go see it, if you can find a theater playing it now, I would. But I do believe that this is going to get a wide release in January, so there's that. But yeah, The Brutalist was fantastic. I loved it. I don't want to get into spoilers, and I'm not going to, and this isn't necessarily a spoiler, but there is going to be a moment. The first half of the film is amazing. I actually brought one of my friends with me, and my wife is, she's pretty big into movies with me, but my friend is not really a big cinephile at all. He's not like a big film nerd or anything like that. I mean, he's like, he's casual. He's a very casual film goer. And I've actually had the opportunity to show him Eyes Wide Shut. We saw Eyes Wide Shut in a theater, and now The Brutalist. Whenever the intermission hit, I looked over at him and I was like, how is it so far? And he was like, yeah. And I think that's a testament maybe to how general audiences might feel about this, because my friend is not a big movie guy whatsoever. But there is going to be a moment in the second part of this movie. There is a moment in this film that happens, and you are either going to be with it or you're not. Like, it's going to be something that just does not work for you. So I'm curious to see. For me, it worked, but it was very blunt. It was very on the nose, and it was just, I could kind of understand the metaphor right then and there. But again, it's going to be just completely up to you and how you feel about it. But it's intense, and it's something I did not see it going there. I don't think anybody did. But congratulations to everybody that worked on this film. If I had to guess what awards it's going to be nominated, I like to do it, not that I'm a professional with it whatsoever, but it's going to get nominated for Best Picture, it's going to get nominated for Best Director, it's going to get nominated for Best Act, Costume, stuff like that. I'm not exactly sure, but I know it's going to get nominated for those. But yeah, that's The Brutalist for you. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a thumbs up and maybe subscribe, and I'll see you next time.